Welcome to yet another episode of Know Your Alumni Series of the Alumni Relations Cell of the Shri College of Commerce. Today we are privileged to feature Mr. Sameer Chadha, batch of 1988, CEO of KPMG Global Services, a person who brings with him 35 years of leadership in banking and offshore industries. Please join me in welcoming Sameer, whose journey exemplifies growth, dedication and transformation in whichever domain he has stepped into.
Thank you so much, Reena. Lovely to be here and delighted to be a proud alum and look forward to the conversation with you.
What was the story behind the admission of Shri at SRCC? I mean, why SRCC?
Yeah, so I think the fact of the matter is that one of the preeminent colleges of the country at the point, right, continues to be the preeminent college. In fact, it's interesting that at the time when I got in, and I was recently saying this to somebody, that I'm reasonably sure that now with the cutoffs, I couldn't have got in. Of course, now the CUET is in place, but at the time, the cutoffs were such that I did manage to get in. But ultimately, academic brilliance, excellence, it was a privilege to actually be part in SRCC. I'm just so happy that I actually managed to get in.
Okay, and while you were in SRCC, were you involved in any extracurricular activities or any societies? And
I was wholly inadequate in that. I was just basically really enjoying myself in SRCC at the time. It was, I came out of St. Columbus, joined, and we had a big batch of friends, and we had a big group in SRCC, and I have to confess that a lot of time which was not in classes was actually conducted in the hallways there as opposed to doing anything constructive in society. So can't say I did too much there when I was there.
But the bonds that you created in SRCC
right.
and the friends that you made there, are they still as strong?
Yeah, so some of them are absolutely there, and it's been like over 35 years since it's happened. In fact, I just recently in a social event I had met a couple of them, and we always fondly think back to that period. I think it was a defining period for a lot of us. There was a bit of a footloose and fancy-free kind of thing that was going there. The academics were excellent. You were kind of engaged with a set of friends who were from the same kind of academic backgrounds, at least as you were. I was personally doing BCom honors, yes, maybe not all of them, because with time some have moved out to different countries, they got married, the bonds have frayed, but some of them definitely I am in touch with.
Could you walk us through your journey after you passed out of SRCC? So what was your trajectory after that?
So after SRCC 88, I did a chartered accountancy degree, right? And I graduated out of CA in 1991. After that, I joined Nestle. I was actually auditing them every single year of my articles, and they told me, if you qualify, we'll give you a job. I qualified, they gave me a job. I was there till 94, and then I moved into a Bank of America. I was in Bank of America for about 8 years, right? I left Bank of America, joined an organization called ICare OneSource. I was there for about a couple of years, then a couple of years in Lehman Brothers, and then I left and joined Barclays. I was the CEO of the Barclays offshore organization, the GCC, for a number of years. I left them in 2016. In the last decade, I've been now with KPMG, where, as you said, I'm the the head of the delivery platform. I'm running the offshore organization of KGS in India.
I just want to ask you something. Some of the beliefs maybe that you inculcated in SRCC during your time as a student, have they stood the test of time for you even now? Was there anything that...
I think for me the whole piece around academic excellence and excellence generically, right? And the mingling of academic excellence with a vibrant social, engagement as well, with a series of, friends in college. I think that combination of in life, right? I think while we say that we all need to work hard, of course, but I think you also need to have fun while you're doing what you're doing. I think SRCC was a great example of where the academic benchmarks were never lowered or anything like that. First of all, to get into it itself was so difficult, right? And then, most of us actually were very clear that we needed to do well I was in BCom or in BA Economics or whatever you're in, but we had a lot of fun doing it. So I think that's a great what should I say? It's a great mirror for corporate life, right? Where you can work very hard, but you can have fun while you're working very hard.
So work hard and party hard.
That's right. Well, yes, that is right. That is right, Rita.
Okay, and also I wanted to ask you: is there any professor who left a mark on your mind, or any maybe something that it stayed with you long enough, your few years in SRCC?
And so not, maybe not a specific professor, but I think for me the impressive thing used to be that most of the books that we used to have to study from, the authors were all actually faculty in SRCC, right? So I mean, when you talk of academic brilliance, right, it's fascinating that, that the reference material, the books that the whole Delhi University was being taught on, right, the professors were actually professors in SRCC. So that was, I think, a big thing.
So when you look back, I think your first year in SRCC, and then finally when you passed out of SRCC, is there something, what was going through your mind as the trepidations when you enter SRCC and milegi ke nahi college mein admission, and then finally when you pass out, what was that sense?
I think it's a combination of things. So one is when you get in, first of all, you know that you're rubbing shoulders with a lot of academically brilliant people, right? Then you have that pressure that you need to be able to do well and graduate. And then when it comes to year 3, the third year, right, I guess the issue that plays out is that, first of all, trepidation at what happens next in life and where do you go and what do you really do. And then the sadness of leaving that life behind. Because quite honestly, I tell everybody, and for all of you who are watching this and who are in college right now, it's the best years of your life. They're not coming back, right? I can tell you that. I went into CA. Of course, that was also fairly collegiate in the way it was, but it's like a job, right? It's not like a college where you're having fun. So I think there is that, you feel that sense of sorrow of leaving behind that entire bond that you had with people. But equally, I think you walk out far more confident, having cleared this thing. I will do a bit of plug for myself, on this, that I actually got 100 out of 100 in maths, right?
Oh my God.
So I actually I had to say that it was 50 on 50. So that was one good thing that I felt in third year. Yeah.
So my next question to you is, when somebody says that you're from SRCC, you carry that name as a badge of honor?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and this has to go without fail. I'm the 88 batch. Many batches have gone after that. Many batches are still studying. That the sense of pride that you feel when you say you're from SRCC, because that name and that brand translates to something, right? Whether it's academic brilliance, whether they look at you in a different way. I think I have always, felt a real sense of pride saying that I come from SRCC.
So, what would be your, what can you tell our current students? What qualities that our students must develop to become, as successful as you are, and what should, to have a successful career? What would be your?
So I think what I would tell students now is, of course, I have 2 sons, 28 and 23. They're both working now. But I would tell students that you are, whether we like it or not, we are entering into a world which has a lot of ambiguity. Things are changing all the time. Artificial intelligence is driving a lot of change, right? Therefore, I would say 2 or 3 things. One is to say that get comfortable to dealing with ambiguity. I think the era of long-term careers may not be really valid anymore, because industries change so much, technologies are changing so much. So get comfortable with ambiguity and dealing with that. And I would say that exiting SRCC on the assumption that you do a postgrad, whatever you choose to do, but the learning must never stop, right? Because there is so much happening in the world now that I think if you feel that there is a formal education and then there is the education that happens after you join. So personally, as an example, I read a lot, right? I try to keep myself up to date on what's happened. So I would tell students that, you got into SRCC, that means you are, the cream of the student. So that's great, right? I think never underestimate, the intellect you have and the intelligence you have that has allowed you to get into this institution, but equally be prepared for ambiguity when you go out there. Be prepared for the fact it's a very competitive world, right? And always keep learning. That's what I would say.
And what do you think, how can you give back to your alma mater? What would be your message to alums that you would like to,
So I think from an alum point of view, again, there are, I guess, 2 or 3 ways you can do it. One is, of course, that you can, come back into college, talk to students, talk to them about corporate life, talk to them about how it actually feels once you're out of a academic environment in the real world, so to speak. That's one. The other is, we are always on the lookout for talent, right? SRCC obviously has terrific talent. Can we look at, internships for deserving students depending on the roles that we have, etc. And lastly, I would say that, could somebody like me, for example, support some students get through college, right? And that would be, I think, a good way to give back. But those are the ways, I think. I mean, stay connected to the college. The college has given us a grounding and has added to our resume fairly significantly. So I do think that if the alums can give back in whatever little way they can, it should be done.
Now that Shri Ram College of Commerce has completed a century, it's in its centenary year, it's 100 years of glorious excellence that we are celebrating. What is your vision for the college for the next 100 years, and how alums can contribute towards it?
Yes, so I think first of all, again, congratulations on the centenary, right? 100 years of which I think I've been out of there for now 38 or 40 years. So I've been, part of the 100-year journey in some shape or part. And I guess on alums, the fact is, first of all, you have a significant number of alums who presumably many of them are doing well in life. And I think in terms of giving back, there could be 2 or 3 mechanisms. One is, could they come back, give lectures, talk about things, could the organizations we run have classes on specific subjects that people want to understand, for example, on strategy or, corporate finance and elements like that. That's one example. The other is, could we actually support, let's say, relatively underprivileged kids who are going through college? Could we sponsor their tuition, as an example? Also then, all organizations want talented individuals, and no better college than SRCC for that. Could we shake hands with you on some form of an internship program where we have certain needs and you have folks who want real life corporate experience, and could we work on things like that? So I think there are many ways of doing that, and I actually think it should be done because you in some shape or form, SRCC has laid a strong foundation for all of us. I'd like to believe that, if many of us have reached where we have in corporate life and are fortunate enough to do that, that SRCC did play its part in the success that we had in our careers.
And thank you for I think your giving back and to the alma mater in the ways which you have suggested. And before we close, I want to know, what's your fondest memory of SRCC?
So apart from the friends, right, I have to say that the samosas in the canteen were terrific, right? If I'm at a certain weight profile today, some part of that is SRCC's fault because of the samosas we had. They were absolutely awesomely terrific, and I must have consumed many of them during my 3 years out there.
So that means that you have to come back
to eat the samosas,
and to enjoy the college again, and to reminiscence your good times. And we will be honored to have you back in our college. And thank you so much.
No, not at all, Reena. Thank you so much, and thank you to Dr. Simrit Kaur as well for arranging this with alums. It's been lovely to catch up with you.
Thank you very much.